Good evening, and welcome to the Dead Earth Podcast. The Earth died long ago, and at first only a few of us realized. This is the future that awaits us all. How quickly things can change. I met you while waiting for the ferry back downtown. The sun revealed the many different colors of your hair. I sat down beside you on the boat, even though I was too scared to say anything. But I swear, even then, I could feel you despite the distance between us. My heart was pounding and my hands sweating, not because I stood nervous at the precipice of social interaction, but instead because I knew I was going to do nothing. I'd shoot you a smile before you walked off the boat, and I would imagine what you and I could have possibly meant, spun out years into the future over the span of a few lonely nights before abandoning the thought of you as a warm but impossible dream. But then you pulled something out of your purse and shoved your thumb into it and tore off its skin and held up a slice for me and asked, "Would you like an orange?" You told me your name and I told you mine, and we were listening to Flagpole Sitta in a coffee shop, the sun long gone, and your teeth were crooked and stained yellow, and you kissed me and my chest was consumed with a static energy that rolled out in waves away from me. My mind went mute, and I wonder now whether this is how a television feels when transmitting an empty channel, dumb and rapturous and beautiful. The static that spun away from me had taken time along with it. And from that point on, our lives moved at the speed of light. You and I held hands and drank boba tea and wrote a comic book using the pages of my childhood journal, and bought a house and adopted a cat and mourned the cat when she went missing, and we attended funerals and meetings and a concert where the performer said something true that we took home with us, and we eloped without telling another soul. And you were supposed to leave before me that day, but you took too long getting in the shower. And I stepped in and kissed you in the pouring water, and we shared a smile because we knew we would see each other that night. And I drove to work, and when I returned, I could hear the water was still running, and I was very sure of what that meant, but my body floated like a ghost into the bathroom and over the overflowing water to confirm what I already knew. That you were there on the floor of the shower, your face obscured in the shroud of your hair. There are miles and years and states of being between you and I now, but I swear I can still feel you as though you were beside me on that boat. No longer is life a constant streaming explosion of love. It's instead a slow, laborious, unfeeling orbit. I exist and move into the orbit of other drifters, and we say things at each other, gaining satellites, losing others, before spiraling out into new depths where one or the other cannot follow. And then I always return to our home, your home. The problem with homes is that they wear your memories on the walls. The bedroom where we read Sandman, the shower where we held each other until the water ran cold, and so we turned it off and laid there, bare, until the warmth had returned. The kitchen where we raced its length on our hands and knees, stupid and ecstatic and delighted, simply to be together. And the shower where you died. In the kitchen where your parents came to drink coffee with me that night. And then whiskey. And then that bed where I refuse to sleep anymore because it's too big. Each threshold I cross is another moment I am haunted by the overbearing weight of our love. I still imagine you sometimes standing on the final of those thresholds, the back door into the alleyway, where we went after grabbing the keys and locking up, and I can see you most clearly still when I visualize you there, picturing a moment that never happened. You're there, holding all your things. The hairbrush with cartoon princesses, the drawing of would-be tattoos, the Regina album, your favorite blanket and your cat sweatshirt and your cigarettes, and you just won't go. You have a look on your face that I know well, the one I see every morning as I get ready, and you're so scared because we are never going to see each other again. And I want to tell you that you don't have to leave, or that I'll leave with you, or at least that I'm here. But you can't hear me. In some ways, I think that's the worst part. If I could lie down at night and speak into a little box, or write my thoughts on a phantom page, or whisper to a transitory creature that walked the line between life and death, and I was sure those thoughts would still be received by you, and I, in turn, could hear your laugh that next morning, or see what it was you felt now in our ever-widening absence, I think I would be okay. I think that would be enough. I would still crave your touch, the smell of your hair, the relief of seeing you standing in the doorway, but it would be enough. When I was younger, having first learned of what love could be, and then loss, I would ease my loneliness by walking. It didn't matter whether that walk was beside a busy highway or into the deepest parts of the woods, because these places barely registered. I often could not see at all, because I was deep inside of myself, radiating my moods into these places so that when I returned home I could feel something, anything else. I never went on such a walk while I knew you, but now it's all I do. I carry these walks on well into the night, bringing no watch, no phone with me, as though I hope time will cease to be somewhere along the way. And when I'm really down in it, down inside those moods, I will come to hours later in neighboring towns, on alien highways, places I'm sure no one has ever been. And in those most remote places, the return trip is a complex process, like unraveling tangled yarn. When we traveled, you always insisted on getting lost, despite my protests. We would become utterly displaced and then spend hours finding our way home. I was always worried. You were always excited. Those are some of my favorite memories. And here I am, in one of those places now, without you. The sun is gone. The stars are unfamiliar. There is a single streetlight and many, many dead houses. I move toward the light, hoping for some sign, straining for this place to tell me what it is, or where, but I find no words, no maps. Instead, beneath the droning yellow light, stands the only living building on the street. Large, thick strands of hair sprout from the brown warts that dot the gaping mass. It sweats slime in the damp air, and stale warmth drifts out from within. Its eyes are closed, and its tongue is lolled out invitingly. There are no teeth or threatening things that I can see inside. I wonder whether someone resides here, or if that's even possible to do within this breathing, snoring place. But I am suddenly overcome with the sickly sweet desire to become lost, and so I step up, timidly at first, before deciding that this is what I want above all else. I confidently cross the final threshold. Inside is a maze of hallways carved into pink esophageal muscle, streaked with hanging lines of iridescence. I step carefully to maintain my footing among the ribbing folds that rise out of the floor. Thick ropes of gray snot fall from the ceiling and slinky down the walls. There are floors on either side of the hall, but I feel compelled to follow the main path. The tunnel winds forward beyond my sight, and I wonder whether it has an end. There are no windows, and light has grown dim. I search among the meaty walls for a light switch. Eventually I find one and flick it. Ceiling lights snap on, up and down the hall, bathing the residents in an unkind yellow glow. Black rot spots the walls and seems to grow worse in the direction I'm headed. Each spotted mass begins the same, with harsh lines drawn on the surface, chalky outcroppings encircling, and then eventually succumbing into a black, rotting maw that thins the material it grows on and flakes off into pulp that drifts down and collects beneath like dandruff or ash. Death is natural, I think, gazing at these black marshes dotting the pink expanse. But that does not reassure me. In fact, it means nothing. Death is an enemy of all I love. And when I realize how deeply afraid I am, a fact that before you I was only dimly aware, I become firm in my hatred for it. I rebuke the ending we are all plummeting towards, but you are already gone. If I were to live forever, it would be in torment, carrying the knowledge you once existed and did no longer to the furthest corners of the universe. You were why death scared me so, I realize. But before that, I realize how utterly devoid of emotion this inner monologue is. I have not thought this clearly since you died. What did I even want anymore? Who was I other than yours? No one. That answer comes not from me, but from the murky blackness of thought, that place deep inside each of us that watches studiously, taking careful notes and writing down the answers to questions we don't know we have. And then when the time is right, when we're ready and the question comes to us, that all-knowing being gurgles up and answers for us. No one, it says. The thought resonates again, but this time not from inside of me. It was deeper in, down the hall. I look up suddenly into the dim blackness beyond where the chittering lights end, and I could have sworn I saw a pair of eyes drift off into the beyond. Those eyes, they are so familiar. It's because I used to draw those eyes in my childhood. From a young age, I recognized the conflict within myself, between my mind and my body, what I wanted to think of myself as and what I was. I would claw at my stomach at night, trying to change it into what I thought I should be, hoping at least its skin raised much like mine. Whenever my thoughts drifted back to that thing, I would snap my mouth shut out of a fear that others could look down inside and see those eyes gazing out at them from the back of my throat. That erudite creature that lived inside of me and knew what I knew, felt what I felt. It was here. It was in this house with me. Those eyes could not have belonged to another. When had it crawled out and left me? I don't know, but I hurry after it, taking care to avoid falling into the pools and puddles of churning gruel. My sight ends abruptly, as though a line had been drawn where light could no longer reflect, beyond which only awaits further darkness. I don't bother searching for another switch. I know that light would do little to help me here. I hear a door slide open and then ease shut quietly, as if this creature does not want me hearing where it has gone. It knows I'm after it, and it's scared. The dark continues to deepen, and it slows my progress drastically, as the floor has only grown more uneven. I can feel patches of rot beneath my feet, where the floor has an elasticity threatening to snap. But it holds, and my outstretched hand finds the door at the end of the hall. This, I am sure, was the door through which my spectator had retreated. Without caution, I grab and turn the knob. The door gives way, and I step into a gargantuan room, which seems to have no ceiling that I can see. Breathing walls tower behind me and to my left, and stretch on into the blackness, expanding and contracting with audible croaks and burps that echo over and over and over, as the sound tumbles and whirls freely in this impossible place. A large brown mass of tissue hangs, suspended by strings of flesh off in the distance. The bidder's organ. And I can see that strange creature beneath it, gazing up wonderingly at this marvel of biology. I take a step forward, curious and horrified and angry. This thing has known me, has known you, and now it is gone, just like you, free of me and this life, and out to experience whatever lay beyond, while I lay here in the wasteland that is the enormous shadow you left behind. I do nothing to mask my noise. My footsteps echo out into this ghastly auditorium, but the creature does not seem to mind or care. Its body is shrouded in the shadow of that hanging organ, and I still cannot quite make out its features when I lay a hand on its shoulder. It stiffens beneath my touch, like a knot of coiled muscle, a pit formed in the stomach, and then eases again moments later as it realizes I am not going to attack. Instead, I open my mouth and utter a single word. Why? My voice is weak. It turns, and I'm not prepared. It has your eyes, your hair, it has your nose, but it has my mouth, my teeth, my expression of frailty, and my forehead, creased in permanent sorrow. It reaches its hand out to hold mine, and it opens its mouth and snaps it shut again in a way only I can understand. A tear runs down its face, your face as well as mine, and it says what we already knew to be the answer. I don't know. We sobbed together, clutching one another in this abandoned place. And I could smell your hair again, and that made it all worth it. There was nothing else for me to do, and so that black thing that had exited me the day you died, the one I had drawn so often as a child, the one that I never realized until this moment looked so much like you, even then, 2 decades before I would first see you on that boat. That creature opened its mouth, my teeth, your tongue, and I climbed inside, finding that familiar abode. I walked through our living room and opened the door to our bedroom and curled up in our bed And when I opened my eyes hours later, the walls were moving. The stucco material shifting and jumping like television static. And I saw shapes emerge from the once solid structure. And they all looked like you. Our house remembered you as well as I. It was a futile gesture, but I had to try anyway. I steadied my breathing and asked the only question I cared to hear an answer to in the lonely dark of our home. Are you here?
The Dead Earth podcast is created by Emily Lyles, Taylor Normington, John Reeder, and Dan Wallace. All stories are crafted by Taylor Normington. Home was performed by Taylor Normington. Our logo artwork is designed by Chloe Burns. You can find more of her work on Instagram at Tiny Moon Studios. Episodic artwork by Amy DeHaan. Our website is deadearthpodcast.com. Thank you for listening.